This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. I don't know about you guys, but this feels like it's been one of the most chill drafts the Cleveland Browns have ever had. They didn't move back. They didn't create that much chaos. They didn't trade up. It seems like they're going to sit back at every pick that they have and just take guys that they like, which surprised me because I didn't think that they would be interested in taking guys in the 6th, 7th round. But what we're going to talk about today is the Browns' 5th round selection at 156, and that is Jamari Thrash. And I'm actually pretty excited about this pick. This is a pick that I like. I like Jamari Thrash coming out of the Senior Bowl. I thought the guys I had in my 3rd, 4th round packet were him, Malachi Corley, who kind of ended up jumping that because a lot of people got excited about him. But yeah, I like Jamari Thrash. I think he is a solid wide receiver to add. If you're wondering what Jamari Thrash does well, he's a great route runner. He has a full route tree. Steve Smith has a great video going about his pros and cons that he feels like Jamari Thrash has. And he really liked his tape. And outside of the Senior Bowl, I actually did get eyes on Jamari Thrash when he played the Georgia Southern Eagles in 2022 at Georgia State when he was there. He was really impressive there. Had 5 receptions for 75 yards and a touchdown and a long of 53. So I've been a fan of Jamari Thrash for a little while. I've been a fan of his game. Look, I always love wide receivers who have a willingness to get physical. I always love wide receivers who have violent feet, right? They feet smack the ground when they run those routes. I like that. Crisp routes, strong routes, stiff routes, but not too stiff. And I think I don't think he's strong, but he has strong hands. He uses those hands with intention, right? So he doesn't just kind of pity patter with his hands. He really just swipes with intention whenever he does use his hands. I think he's a really smart route runner. He's a really detailed route runner. He's a smart football player. I think he has a high football IQ. Something I can see him really excelling with is when Deshaun Watson does the scramble drill. Some guys have that understanding of what a quarterback needs out of them in that situation, how to get a good ball, and some guys don't. And he seems like somebody who naturally understands, okay, my quarterback's in trouble. I know where I need to get to make sure that he can get me a ball that I can do something with, or be in a position where he's going to be comfortable throwing the ball based on what he can see. He seems to have a really good feel for that. And I do think if he does find a way to get time with the ones in camp, he's going to find himself in that rotation. Now, he's not going to have heavy targets in this rotation, but he could find himself in that rotation because he's quarterback friendly. He's a smart route runner. He has a high football IQ, and he really fits what you want to do with Deshaun Watson at quarterback, and he's a good fit around him because of that ability, right? He knows when to break off a route, what kind of depth to run it at, and that's really going to help Deshaun Watson. And you got to think about the changes that the Browns are making to the offense, and a lot of the changes are going to be about how wide receivers are going to be getting open, right? I think that was one of the big problems, that they didn't like how they had to make these wide receivers get open. They had to run somebody had to run cardio, basically. You had to stretch the field and rely on a lot of timing and all that. But this year, they're going to rely on more, choice situations, right? Where they're going to allow wide receivers to kind of read and leverage corners and have more freedom with that, because it's not as strict in, I need you to be here so this play is going to be open. It's going to be more, I need to be open so Deshaun Watson can see me and get me a ball here, right? Deshaun Watson plays better when he's allowed to make plays and kind of process post-snap. And part of that is allowing your wide receivers a little bit more freedom to, maybe break the rules a little bit, right? It was a big talking point when Odell Beckham was here, when people said he was basically freestyling his routes. But what Odell Beckham was doing was adjusting his routes based on what he was seeing in coverage, because he was used to a quarterback in Eli Manning who wanted to kind of see the play develop post snap and then make his decision there, instead of somebody like a Baker Mayfield who at the time was being taught, hey, make your decision pre-snap. Make sure you're disciplined with your eyes, and make sure you're disciplined with your feet, and get the ball out in time with your feet. With Deshaun, it's going to be different, right? The timing of the route is not going to be precise to the timing of Deshaun Watson's feet. So that wide receiver has more flexibility to kind of get open in the way that that wide receiver sees fit. And as long as you have a quarterback who's comfortable processing in the muck, then you can have success doing that, right? It's kind of how Joe Burrow plays. It's how Cam Newton played. It's how Josh Allen played. So that's going to be what the Browns want to move to. I think he's a great fit for that. He already has a great feel of where he needs to be on the field. He has a great feel of how to adjust his routes per what coverage that he's seeing or where he's seeing linebackers drop to. He's a really quarterback friendly wide receiver. And I think that has to do with him not having great quarterback play in his college career. So in order to get the ball, he has to kind of be conscious of that and adjust to that. And I think that's going to benefit him very much in the NFL. He's physical in his routes is another thing I like about him. Contact doesn't phase him. You'll see somebody, and I hate to keep bringing him up, but he's the first person that pops in my head. Like a Tez Walker, if he gets touched in his route, or if he gets touched while he's trying to catch a ball, it affects him a little bit too much for me, right? If you touch him, his whole route energy changes. If you grab him while he's trying to catch the ball, his whole body language changes. And I don't love that about him, right? And I think that's something that would scare me off of a Tez Walker, because you're going to get touched in the NFL. You're going to get that physical, contact on you. And unless you're somebody who could play in the slot, there's really no way of avoiding it, right? So with Jamari Thrash, I think he's an outside receiver. I don't think he's a slot guy. I think he's an outside guy. I think he's somebody that will take David Bell's reps on this team. Like David Bell usually has some outside reps. He's not really a slot guy. I think those reps get taken by Jamari Thrash. I think he's just better at the stuff that you need him to be better at. And the contact stuff, right? With David Bell, sometimes that contact affects him. Now, he's slighter than what an average wide receiver in the NFL is, so he does need to gain some weight in order just to feel comfortable about his ability to stay healthy. And also you don't know if, he doesn't mind playing through contact right now, but maybe in the NFL where the contact is much heavier, it feels different. He doesn't want to go through that contact, but I don't anticipate that being a thing. Another thing that I think about every time I watch a wide receiver is Amari Cooper was talking to Cam Jordan on a podcast about how a lot of wide receivers have drop issues because they never get over not knowing if they're going to be hit. Like when they turn around and they're facing this way, that thought that they can get smacked always is something that they're thinking about. And as long as you have that fear, you're going to drop footballs, right? I think Amari kind of broke it down that way. And you can always tell when a wide receiver has a little of that in them and if that wide receiver doesn't have any of that in him. I look at Jamari Thrash. He does not appear to have any of that in him, right? Like you watch him, he's okay. Getting blindsided, he's okay. Finish with contact, he's okay. Getting physical, he's okay. Trying to catch the ball through contact, he's okay. Getting it done rough and tumble. So that's another thing that I like about him. Ironically enough, he comes Steve Smith approved, which is hilarious because Jerry Jeudy is not Steve Smith approved. Now, I don't know if this approval means that he's going to be a great wide receiver right away, but the things that Steve Smith did like about him was his high football IQ and that he's a smart route runner. And I don't think that's a bad thing, right? Smart route runner, high football IQ. If Steve Smith saying that about you, he probably does see something that's valid. The same way that his criticisms of Jerry Jeudy when it comes to on the football field are probably some level of valid, right? Jerry Jeudy's not a perfect wide receiver. Doesn't mean he's trash. Just doesn't mean he's not perfect, right? And it doesn't mean that Jamari Thrash is better than Jerry Jeudy just because he's Steve Smith approved. It just means that he's the type of receiver that Steve Smith likes. And it makes sense, right? Now, it's going to be interesting how he tries to get time because Michael Woods is somebody they want to give a shot to. We know that Cedric Tillman is somebody they're giving tons of chances to. And, you know, there's a ton of guys ahead of him right now. And it's going to be tough for him to stick. I think he will stick. I think this is somebody who flat out makes the roster and is definitely worth making the roster. Because, again, I think he can be in the rotation because of his fit with the Browns. Catches through contact, strong hands. I think Steve Smith and I had the same idea. He's a first down getter, right? Somebody who can get you a tough first down. Those guys are always your favorite wide receiver, right? Because touchdowns are cool, but you know what's even better? Getting a first down, because you can't get touchdowns unless you get first downs. He's slight. He does need to gain weight. I think he'll be able to do that, or at least gain some muscle mass. I don't think he needs to like bulk up 30 pounds or something like that, something crazy like that. He just needs to get a little bit stronger. And I think an NFL weight program would do him a lot of good there. I do think also this is somebody, he has the type of skill set, he has the type of play style that when people see him in camp, they're going to love him. Right now, sometimes that happens and the player's not that good, but I think this is going to be one of them times where it happens and the player is actually somebody who might play in games on Sundays, right? Like he is going to run those routes hard as hell. He's going to be physical. He's going to try to fight through contact, and he's going to be really smart and savvy with where he's going to be on the field. So I like this pick a lot. They waited a while to get a wide receiver, but they did get one, and they got one that I think is going to be rosterable, which is a big deal, right? And not just rosterable. I think he has some potential to become a plus player, not a plus player, but a plus player, right? You know, somebody who get 400 to 700 yards and be a really dependable 3 or 4 wide receiver. I think that's in his future. If he gets times with the ones this year, like if there's injuries, if there's people who sit out, there is a chance that he finds a way to stick for sure. So that's my thought there on Jamari Thrash. Like the player a lot. I'm really interested to see what the Browns do and what he does in camp, because I think he's going to be somebody who's going to turn a lot of heads once he suits up in Berea and people get to see him practice, especially with pads on, because he definitely got my attention the 2 times I've seen him play football, once at Georgia State and the other time at the Senior Bowl. So that's my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.